This story usually began like thousands of stories before it. A guy and a girl met, fell in love with each other. Nadia was a graduate of the cultural education school. Vladimir was a cadet of a military school. There was spring, there was love, and it seemed that only happiness lay ahead. They walked the streets and parks of the city, kissed and made plans for the future. It was the middle of the 80s and the concepts of friendship and love were pure, bright, and categorical. Nadia believed that love and loyalty are inseparable concepts. But life sometimes brings surprises, and not always pleasant ones. One day, when she was in a hurry to the school, she saw Vladimir at the tram stop. But not alone, but with a girl. He smiled, hugged her and said something joyfully. He did not see Nadia, she was walking along the other side of the street. However, she no longer walked, but stood rooted to the spot, not believing her eyes. Probably, it was necessary to approach, explain, but she was a proud girl and, descending to some kind of questions. It seemed to her humiliating. Then, in the mid-70s, girlish pride was not an empty phrase. Nadia could not guess who this girl was. Exactly, not a sister. Volodya had no sisters, she knew that. All night Nadia cried into her pillow and by the morning she decided that she would not ask anything and find out. Why, if she saw everything with her own eyes? Ask to hear the false, you misunderstood everything. Youth is principled and uncompromising, but it lacks wisdom. She broke up with Volodya, without explaining anything to him. At the meeting she simply said that everything between them was over. Without answering his bewildered and confused questions, she simply left. She could not look into his, as it seemed to her, deceitful face. Here, by the way, the graduation from her school in distribution came up. She was sent to work in the library of a small Ural town. Nadia went to her place of work and tried to put Volodya out of her head. A new life began, and there was no room for old mistakes and disappointments. The arrival of the young librarian in the town did not go unnoticed. She was a beautiful girl. Almost from the first days of Nadia's work in the library, a young lieutenant who worked in the police began to take care of her. He courted naively and touchingly, gave flowers, stood at the library counter for a long time, was silent and sighed. This went on for quite a long time. Many days passed before he dared to walk her home. They started dating. After some time Sergei, that was the name of the lieutenant, declared his love to Nadia and offered to become his wife. She did not give an answer right away. She said, "I'll think about it." And how can you not think if there is no love? Of course, there was nothing repulsive either in his appearance or in his behavior. He was a tall youth with good manners and good looks. But the memory of the lost love still lived in the heart. Although Nadia knew that there was no return to the past, and if so, she had to think about the future and somehow arrange her life. In those distant years, it was customary for girls to get married on time. The fate of an old maid did not attract anyone. Sergei was a good guy, from a decent family. With a prestigious profession, service in the police was honorable and, in principle, was equated with the military. Yes, and girlfriends advised, you will miss such a guy. And where you will find the best, in a small town there was not a particularly rich choice of suitors. And she made up her mind. I thought, endure, fall in love, however. This well-known expression does not always reflect reality. After a while they got married, and at first Nadia liked the new life in which she plunged headlong. It was nice to feel like a married lady, to build a family nest, to put things in order and comfort in the apartment, to wait for her husband from work. It was like a new exciting game, with unknown rules and pleasant surprises. But when all the novelty passed into the category of the usual, she clearly understood that the postulate, be patient, fall in love, does not work. Nadia was never able to love her husband, although he surrounded her with attention and care, loved and was proud of her. But the choice had been made, and if it was the wrong one, she had no one to blame but herself. Do not disperse 2 or 3 months after the wedding, especially since she became pregnant by this time. At the right time, Nadia gave birth to a daughter, and the pleasant chores of motherhood put aside all the problems of a not very happy family life for a while. And then the ordinary life of the average Soviet family flowed, with its everyday life and small joys. The daughter grew up, the husband grew in ranks and positions. She no longer worked in the library, the initiative, bright girl was noticed. And now she raised the culture in the area, being an employee of the youth palace. Life settled down and entered some familiar shores, only now Nadia became more and more bored. She realized long ago that just being loved is not happiness, and not even half happiness. She wanted to love herself. And family life more and more began to seem to her a prison with a life sentence. This could not but affect family relations. Discord began between Nadia and Sergei. As it turned out, one love for two is not enough. Increasingly, she began to remember Volodya. The memory of lost love lived in her heart. Nadia thought and pondered for a long time and came to the conclusion that it couldn't go on like this. It was necessary to get a divorce. Why torture each other? It was terrible to be alone with the child. It was a pity for the daughter. She loved her father. And the opinion of others was also disturbing. After all, there seemed to be no visible reasons for a divorce, a seemingly strong family, a loving husband. What else did she need? People could say. But she couldn't live like this anymore. The divorce took place. Nadia and her daughter went home, closer to her parents, to one of the regional centers of the region. Soon she entered the Institute for the Correspondence Department, for the specialty in which she worked. Work and study, a busy schedule of life helped to forget the past. There was simply no time to think about a failed family life, to indulge in despondency. Nadezhda graduated with honors from the institute, and gradually began to successfully move up the career ladder. She was full of energy, intelligence and efficiency, and her industriousness and exactingness to herself amazed her colleagues. Perhaps in this way she was trying to fill the void that was in her heart. There is no happiness in personal life, let there be professional success. But, unfortunately, one does not replace the other. To be happy, a person needs not only success in the profession, but also love. And especially a young, blooming woman. Of course, men happened in her life. Life takes its toll, and she did not take a monastic vow. But somehow everything did not work out. It did not work out a serious relationship. She didn't want to connect her life with someone again. Without love, but she couldn't fall in love. But, despite such mental disorder, Nadezhda built her career successfully. Over time, she took an enviable position in the government of the region. The daughter grew up, got married very young, and now she lived separately. Life took place, but there was no happiness. Increasingly, her thoughts returned to her youth, which was so carefree and happy, Volodya recalled. However, she never forgot him. How to forget the first love? Over time, the bitterness from his betrayal somehow smoothed out, became less acute. She so wanted to know something about him. What happened to him? Where is he now? How did he live his life without her? Yes, and whether he is alive, although not a war. But anything can happen in military service. She looked for him on the Odnoklasniki website and found him very quickly. For a long time I did not dare to write to him. Perhaps he will not remember her. Read more at https://minikar.ru/health/raskazy-pro-lubov-is-realnoy-shizhin-lubovnie-istory/ It was such a love for her that she did not forget all her life. And for him, who knows, so many years have passed. She discarded all thoughts and, as if in a whirlpool with her head, she wrote. He responded unexpectedly quickly, offered to meet. It turns out that he had also lived in the regional center for quite a long time, like her. Nadezhda went to a meeting and thought that it was like a meeting with a bygone youth and, of course, did not build any plans. Let's sit down, talk, she thought. He will tell about himself. I, too, remember his youth. But things didn't turn out the way she expected. When they met, time seemed to turn back. It seemed to them that there were no these long years lived separately. They just parted yesterday, and today they met. Again, Nadezhda felt like a young girl, and in front of her she saw a young cadet. Of course, Volodya has changed, so many years have passed. But love has its own special look. And the first words that he said, "You have become even more beautiful," made her understand that he had not forgotten anything either. His eyes, as before, shone with love, and from excitement he spoke incoherently. They, as in their youth, went for a walk through the streets of the city and talked and could not talk enough. He explained to Nadia what kind of girl she saw him with. It was his classmate, at the school where he used to study. An evening of a meeting of graduates was planned. And she invited Volodya to this evening. And they hugged because they had not seen each other since graduation, and it was just a friendly hug. From his further story, Nadezhda learned how his future life turned out after their separation. Just before graduating from college, he married, almost the first beautiful girl that came across. After parting with Nadia, he didn't care who he married. He felt that he would no longer be able to love anyone like that. And it was better for newly made lieutenants to go to the place of service already married. Where? In the distant garrison, which is located in the forest or even on the island, will you find a wife? And then there was only service, distant garrisons, near ones, service abroad, Afghanistan. There was a lot to see, a lot to experience. And family life did not become happy. He could not love his wife. They lived, bound by habit, and 2 daughters. Such a life suited his wife. But he didn't care. He could not forget Nadia, but he believed that they would never see each other again. Looking into each other's eyes, they understood that life gives them a second chance to become happy. And even though youth has passed and whiskey is silvering gray hair, their love has remained as young as it was many years ago. They decided that from now on they would be together and no obstacles frightened them. However, there was one obstacle. Volodya was married. With the frankness and decisiveness characteristic of a military man, he explained himself to his wife, and on the same day, having collected his clothes, he left. Then there was a divorce. His wife's violent attacks on Nadia, resentment and misunderstanding of her daughters. They've been through everything together. Over time, everything calmed down a bit. The daughters understood and forgave their father, recognizing his right to happiness. They were already adults and lived separately. The wife, of course, did not forgive. But she reconciled herself and did not make scandals. And Nadezhda and Vladimir got married, and even got married in the church. They have been together for 5 years now. Over the years, they have traveled to many places, both in Russia and abroad. As they say, we want to go everywhere we could not go together when we were young, to see everything, to talk about everything. And Vladimir adds, I want with Nadenka, to visit those places where she was without me, to experience together everything that she experienced when I was not around. Their honeymoon is still going on, and who knows, maybe it will last for the rest of their lives. They are so happy, such a light of love pours from their eyes, that sometimes it is simply envious for others to look at such a far from young, but such an amazing couple. Paraphrasing the statement of the heroine of the film, Moscow does not believe in tears. Nadezhda can say, now I know, Life at 50 is just beginning. Read more at https://minicar.ru/health/raskazi-pro-lubov-is-realnoy-shizhin-lubovnie-istory/